All right, we'll begin. Good afternoon and welcome to a Zoom forum discussion on the financial strains facing caregivers in Greater Rochester. We are excited that you have joined us in our panel. Over the next hour, we're going to learn more about the extent of those financial strains, hear from two caregivers who this is part of the reality of their lives as they care for loved ones, hear from an expert at Lifespan who works these issues every day, and you'll meet our new caregiving solutions reporter at the Democrat Chronicle. This forum is co-hosted by the Democrat Chronicle, which has committed the last 3 years to coverage of caregiving solutions in communities of color, and also Lifespan of Greater Rochester. And we're really pleased to partner with Lifespan on this forum and on other discussions and initiatives in the year ahead. So thank you to everyone at Lifespan, including Sandy. This event, this discussion, this coverage are funded and supported by the New York-Michigan Solutions Journalism Collaborative, which involves and includes news organizations in Detroit, Buffalo, Rochester, and some nearby communities. In Rochester, that includes WXXI, WHEC, and the Minority Reporter newspaper. These collaborative is supported by the Solutions Journalism Network. It's a partnership of news outlets, universities, and community organizations dedicated to rigorous and compelling reporting about successful responses to social problems. In this case, the extent of caregiving needs in our communities and their impact on families and businesses. What I'd like to do now is ask each of our panelists to briefly introduce themselves, and then we'll begin the discussion. Why don't we begin, Sandy, with you, please?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sandy Shank. I'm a social worker at Lifespan and the Community Care Connections program. I've been working here for over 25 years, helping to support caregivers and try to problem solve. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Sandy, for being here. Jessica.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Register. I am one of the panelists of caregivers. My journey started back in 2019 when my mother was diagnosed with early onset dementia at the age of 53, and I was 24 at the time. So thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. We're glad you're here. Jen.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jen. I am also on the panelist for caregiving, and I take care of my father, who is 80 years old. He lives with me and my family, my 2 boys and my husband. And he has been living with us since about 2017. He did live with us a little bit before he became ill with dementia. But at that point, he was actually like mentally fine. He didn't have any issues and decided to move out and be with his partner at that time. But then when he did come to live with us, it was around 2017, and he's been with us ever since.
Excellent. Jen, thank you. We're looking forward to the discussion. Justice.
Hi, everyone. My name is Justice Marbury. I'm a recent graduate from the Rochester Institute of Technology and formerly one of the Democrat and Chronicle Revisiting the Rochester Narrative Fellows. And now I'm currently the new caregiving solutions reporter at the Democrat and Chronicle.
Excellent. Justice, thanks so much for being here. And our last panelist to introduce, and also our first presenter, Jack.
Hi, thanks, Mike. My name is Jack Rosenberry, and I'm the data coordinator for the New York-Michigan Solutions Journalism program. And basically what that means is that I'm responsible for maintaining a whole set of resources with information that reporters from the collaborative can use to support the stories that they write. And so Mike invited me to provide some of the information that we've got among this data collection about financial implications of caring for loved ones to help set the context for today's discussion. And I'm going to share my screen and share a PowerPoint that has just a little bit of information in it to go along with what I'm going to be talking about. So I'm hoping everyone can see the screen share now. Okay. So again, just jumping right into that, without question, caregiving has a financial impact on those who provide the care. For example, according to a 2021 study commissioned by AARP, more than 3/4 of family caregivers incur some costs. The average out-of-pocket expense for family caregivers was more than $7,200 for a year, and that goes up when the person being cared for has dementia. Caregivers of someone with dementia report spending around $9,000 a year. Some other findings from that study: about half of caregivers say they use their own money for household-related expenses. 30% about 30% had to spend money on rent or mortgage for their loved ones. 21% paid for home modifications, medical costs. 17% of caregivers report spending money on medical costs, like for in-home healthcare or medical equipment. About half, or nearly half, 47% of caregivers have experienced some sort of financial setback as a result of their caregiving. These include things such as dipping into their personal savings or reducing how much they can save for their own retirement. So those are some like direct out-of-pocket things. Another implication is that caregiving and full-time work can also come into conflict. More than half of working caregivers, about 53%, have experienced some sort of work-related impact. The most common of these are taking time off, either paid time or unpaid time, to be as part of the needs to spend time with their loved ones for caregiving. So yeah, these are some national statistics, but I think they do offer some good background for a discussion about the financial issues surrounding caregiving. But in order to find out a bit more about caregivers in our own area, the New York and Michigan Solutions Journalism Collaborative commissioned a poll last summer. We hired a polling firm from Michigan that specializes in this kind of research. In fact, they do like a lot of political polls for Michigan media outlets. But we had this firm talk to 1,000 caregivers. 500 came from Michigan, 500 came from Western New York, and Western New York meaning both Buffalo and Rochester. So I want to present just a couple different findings from that research that I think is relevant for our discussion today. First, a couple things about differences in the differences among the age groups in the survey, which you can kind of see some of that on the slide here. Slightly more than a third of the survey's respondents, about 35%, are what we consider young caregivers, by which you mean under age 50. And this includes 6.6% of the poll's respondents who were in the 18 to 29 bracket, 11.3% who are in their 30s, and 17% in their 40s. So that's just sort of the general demographic age breakdown among our poll respondents. One thing that really stood out, though, is that people of color are disproportionately represented among the caregivers younger than 50. And the donut charts here kind of show that. Among caregivers younger than 50, which is the leftmost chart there, more than half, slightly more than half are white. But if you look all the way over, if you look to the charts to the right there, that compares to 2/3 of the whole sample and more than 70% of the over 50s being white. 28% of those under 50 are African-American compared to 18% of the over 50s and 22% of the whole sample. 11% of the under 50s are other people of color. I mean, for this category, I put together, Latino, Asian, Native American, and that's shown in yellow here. Again, you can see that number is larger for the under 50s than the other two parts of the sample. So clearly, race and ethnicity are related to age, with younger caregivers more likely to come from diverse populations in the areas we surveyed. And finally, we also asked our version of the cost of care question and learned that about half of the respondents had out-of-pocket costs associated with providing care. There weren't any, that didn't differ by age. So again, the next set of numbers I'm going to talk about are for the sample as a whole. The things that people are spending money out of pocket on range pretty widely, but among the top top expenses are transportation, food, rent, utilities. Again, the chart here shows what proportion of caregivers paid for these different things, with transportation topping the list. 46% of everyone in the poll said that, they had this cost related to their care work. And again, you can see kind of going down: food second, rent, utilities third, etc. When asked about the single most expensive thing they paid for, transportation again topped the list. But that was followed in that case by prescriptions and by mobility equipment. So I don't want to take up a ton of time here, since I know the point is we're trying to have a good discussion. So I'll just stop there. But I think even this very quick overview demonstrates how caregivers face financial issues with everything else that they take on when they find themselves in the task of assisting their loved ones. So now I'll go back to Mike for the rest of the program.
Jack, thanks so much for that walkthrough of the lay of the land when it comes to caregiving and to the financial strains facing caregivers. Very helpful data. We're going to turn this over now to Justice, our caregiving solutions reporter, who will have a conversation with Jessica. Justice.
Hey, Jessica, how are you doing today? Oh, you're muted. Your microphone is muted.
After all this and still can't get Zoom right. Huh. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. So I know you're caring for your mom. What has that been like for you?
Great question, broad question. It's been definitely a journey, I would say challenging, since when she was officially diagnosed, I was 24, going on 25, and I was in the beginning of my graduate program at Nazareth. So very challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about like why caring for your mom is important for your family?
Definitely. So our family is very spread out. Her relatives, sisters and brothers live in Florida, California. We have just a few other family members here. But everybody's older and either working. And so I'm just the, most obvious resort. And unfortunately, I don't have any other siblings, or else I would have loved to share the responsibility with somebody else. So naturally, everybody is looking at me to, help mom, of course. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
With that being said, like, do you have any additional assistance outside of your family then? As far as expenses goes or anything like that?
So as far as expenses, no, I have been the only one to assist financially, whether that's helping pay for like her cell phone bill, or transportation, taking her to appointments, even to the grocery store to buy clothes. I did even go as far as to get a Ring camera, just to survey and see, what she's up to, on, whenever I'm not around, which is pretty often. She does receive, SNAP assistance, since she's not working. And that's great, because at least that covers food, but all the other household items, I do sometimes assist with paying for that.
Yeah, that sounds like there's a bunch of different things that you have to pay for outside of, the basic necessities. I remember when we spoke the other day, you kind of talked about how like your mom likes to get her hair and her nails done. And stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, she's a diva. And she's used to, in her early days, doing all the things that, women love to do, used to doing, and we don't think a second about it. But when you're looking at needs versus wants and trying to cut costs. You have to start questioning like, oh, do you really need your nails done? Can we like push that out a little bit? And sometimes, she gets a little disappointed when I have to, explain like, not this month or not this week, but next week or, whenever that time will be. So yeah, the adjustment and transition is, like hard to give and receive like on both sides.
Another thing that stuck out to me about your story is that you told me that you were not only a full-time grad student, but you also had a full-time job while also helping your mom. So like, how did you end up managing your competing priorities in your own life and as well as your mom's?
Um, well, disclaimer, I did the best that I could, even though, you have the guilt or you feel like you fall short in certain areas. Like there were certain days where I forgot to schedule certain appointments or call certain people back to follow up on, different programs and things of that nature. But during the time when I was in school, I literally had to plan out my schedule 2.5 to 3 weeks ahead of time. And I rarely did anything last minute. And regarding her appointments and anything I had to do for her, being in constant communication with my manager at work and, explaining my situation and trying to figure out FMLA and all of the things so I could at least, make sure that I had enough time for her things during the day when I had to work.
Mhm.
So,
I'm just a little curious about, that planning situation, because I know for myself when I was in college, it was difficult for me to see beyond the past, the next week ahead of me. So like,
right.
were you a planner beforehand or was that something you had to learn?
Oh no, thankfully, I'm definitely a planner. So that was naturally just a thing for me. But I did have to learn how to really emphasize and perfect it, which you just can't because you don't know what the next day will bring or what will happen. So I did try to perfect it as much as I could and be still what I want to use to just stay on top of everything as much as I could. So
And before we wrap up, I was just wondering if there's anything that you think would help plan for elderly care or um, caregiving for other people financially.
yeah, I think something that could be helpful is, and then I don't know exactly how this would manifest itself, but if there was somehow a one or two-stop shop of resources for individuals that, are caregivers, or once somebody is diagnosed and whoever the relative is that will be, the main point person, if there is already a list of things or questions that will come up in this journey and having resources already, documented. I feel like there's a lot of great things in Rochester, but a lot of the programs and resources are very siloed. And so none of the systems nor programs are connected to each other in any way. So if there is some way to kind of bridge that gap, I think that could be helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jessica and Justice, thank you so much. Jessica, you talked about resources and documenting them. Jack has a thought on that. Jack? mute button.
Aren't I? Sorry. Yeah, at the collaborative, we actually have compiled something we called a resource guide, and this is a public-facing set of kind of the one-stop shopping thing you were mentioning, Jessica, that has links to a whole bunch of different things. I'm going to put it in the chat right now, and I think I can put it in the chat so that everyone, including all of our participants out there who I don't see on the screen, can see it. And again, it's a set of online links to online resources from, nothing in particular that the collaborative has created so much, but links to things from government agencies, from nonprofit organizations like AARP and such.
Right.
And so here's the link to it. It's set up in a Google Sites format, but kind of thank you for giving us the opening to mention that the collaboratives put together this for public use.
Thank you, Jack. So Sandy, from your expertise, listening to Jessica talk about the financial strains and the gaps, what stood out to you?
Well, I think what Jessica is experiencing is what most caregivers are experiencing. And Jessica, just so you know, kudos to you for taking in your mother and providing the support. And I'd like to erase your guilt. It comes up because we don't feel that we do enough, but what you're doing is a lot, from head to toe, from rescheduling everything you're doing to the workload that you're doing, and also giving your mom the attention and the care that she needs. I know it's hard if you have to turn down her nail or her hair, but again, it is because that's what she's used to, but the resources might not be there to provide that. So if one suggestion I have is if people in out of state or want to do something for you and they can't be there to help you with a meal or transportation, is send a gift card to get the nails done. As much as it sounds simple, it's something they can do and feel like they're helping without being there on a daily basis to help you with the struggles that you have on your plate. Transportation, cell phones, things like that, the expenses are there. I think there are ways that we could help you at Lifespan to help try to coordinate or have someone be able to help you sort out some of the ideas and how to prioritize without you feeling totally overwhelmed, or just to give you somebody to talk to and say at times, I love my mom, but she's frustrating me. Because at times it is frustrating. And the last thing you want to do is upset your parents or your spouse to say, you're frustrating me. So you take it in and it sort of eats you on the inside, but you're really doing a great job. If I was to describe a hero, I'd probably say it's Jessica Register. I would, for what you're doing.
Thank you very much, Sandy.
Sandy,
You can
thank
also
you.
help if there are benefits to apply for. There's things that we could look into just to see if maybe the right insurance plan or whatever. We'd be more than happy to try to dig in, because again, SNAP is beneficial, but maybe there's something else. But we don't really know until we look at an individual case and break it down. So I'd be more than happy to help.
That makes sense. Thank you. That'll be very helpful.
Great. Sandy and Jessica, thanks so much. I'm going to turn things back over to Justice, who will have a conversation with Jen about Jen's experiences and insights. Justice?
Thank you. Hi, Jen. How you doing? Just gotta get
Hi,
that.
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking.
Can you talk a little bit about why your role as a caregiver in your family is important?
Yes. So for me, it's very similar to Jessica, but with the exception of that, I'm the baby of 12 siblings. So my father does have older children, but they're all over the United States. I'm one of the only ones in Rochester that is able to care for him, in addition to the fact that my father made it very clear that he does not want to be put in a home or be put somewhere away from family. Family is something that he taught us from a very young age, is number one. You do what you can for your family, and that's exactly what he instilled in me and all of us, and I will never let him down. And so from the beginning, there was like no question, no hesitation. My husband was super supportive in allowing him to move in with us. And so we just took him on and just started, you know, taking care of him from the very beginning of everything. Thankfully, so because, you know, he could have gotten hurt or injured had I not been in Rochester and noticed the things that were happening, you know, driving and getting lost and doing all those things. Like it could have been very dangerous, and it could have been a bad situation had someone not caught it in time.
Right. So you said that you were the youngest of 12 siblings and only some may live in the area. Do you have any additional support financially from them or from other programs?
No, unfortunately not. It's not to say that they don't know. They know where, you know, he lives with me, that they know that he has needs, but they've never offered to, you know, take care of anything for him or any expenses or provide additional resources or money or food or anything for him, unfortunately. Not to say that you know, it's a bad thing, but it's the support from them is not there.
Yeah, and based on one of our conversations prior, you kind of talked to me about how your dad's retired from the state and so he doesn't qualify for different programs. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So my dad is retired from the county. He worked for Monroe County for over 25 years. He unfortunately did get injured, which with that he does receive workman's comp benefits in addition to his pension. So because of those two incomes, he does not qualify for any benefits or any you know, care or anyone like to come to the home to be able to take care of him. We can pay for those expenses out of pocket, but they're not essentially covered for him. Or even for like myself, a lot of people have asked, like, well, why don't you get paid to take care of your dad? Those programs, unfortunately, we don't qualify for, just based on, you know, his two incomes. But we do have to use the money that he is given to be able to pay for someone to take care of him while I am at work or while I do have class at nighttime, or if I'm not able to be home. So the funds that he does receive is basically just being put back out to care for him when I'm not able to.
Mhm. So with all of that being said, like what were some of the steps that you were required to take to be able to manage or handle your dad's finances?
So I will say that when I did begin to care for him, I knew that he was moving in with me, I had to do a complete change of address because he was getting a lot of mail to his address. And I wanted to make sure that I stayed on top of his bills. Once I did that, I did notice that a lot of his bills were coming, they were past due. They were either a disconnection or termination notice of RG&E, things of those that nature. So when I would call, they wouldn't speak to me. My name is not on the account. You're not, you know, allowed to speak. We need to speak with Julio. I was like, okay, I could put him on the phone, but he's not going to understand what you're saying because in addition to me caring for him, he is primarily a Spanish speaker. So I'm like, you could get a Spanish representative, but he's also hard of hearing. So it's going to be very challenging for you to be able to communicate and receive the response that you'd like for me to be able to speak with you. So one of the challenges was getting the proper, like a durable power of attorney to be able to speak. So that took some time, getting all of his bills in order, finding out exactly what I needed to do, what needed to be paid. So I had to pay for a lawyer to be able to get the power of attorney filled out, get it all signed, and be able to make decisions on his behalf. I then had to in turn take it to the bank, take it to Social Security, send a copy to all of his credit card statements, take a copy to RG&E. So like everyone needed a copy so that I can then speak on his behalf and be able to take care of his bills. So that process in and of itself did take at least, I want to say anywhere between 2 to 3 months just to kind of secure, like make sure that everyone's receiving it on time, following up and getting all that stuff, to then after be able to go ahead and start paying the bills and getting everything situated. Because I also had to make changes to the bank accounts so that I can have access to be able to withdraw and pay and do all that good stuff. So that was definitely a challenge. It's very time consuming. And it is something that I would suggest to anyone taking care of their family. If this is something that you're going to begin doing, start getting the paper drawn up now, especially, finding a lawyer that will do the paperwork for you to be able to speak on your parents' behalf or the person that you're caring for's behalf, because a lot of companies don't want to speak with you if you're not authorized on their bills, unfortunately. Even though you're there to pay a bill, they don't want to hear you. They want to speak to the right person. So
Yeah. I'm just curious, was the lawyer an additional expense that you had to pay on top
Yes.
of the bills that you were trying to pay?
Yes, and luckily that it was a lawyer that he had used in the past, so he knew my father very well. And I explained the situation. I showed him like the medical diagnosis and everything, so he was very understanding of everything. And I also went with my mom, which they're still legally married, but they're separated, have been for over 20 years. So I did go with my mom as well, just in the event that he didn't allow me to do it, he would allow at least my mom. We just needed some form of documentation to try to help him get to, where he was. But he was very understanding. But yes, it was definitely an additional cost.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot to have to do.
Mhm.
One thing that stood out to me from your story, is that you're a part of what we call the sandwich generation, which is someone who is like raising children of their own while also taking care of their parents.
Mhm.
And I was just curious, because I know that your son's going to college next year.
Yeah.
So how will your finances be impacted by that as well?
That's a great question. Having a college student in and of itself is an additional expense, like being able to pay for that, right? And so I've already began the process of like FAFSA and doing all that stuff. Our expected family contribution is already a couple thousand a year, which means that I'm going to have to make some adjustments, right? So in addition to those adjustments, that means my budget is going to be even tighter than what I have it to be right now. And then just like because of the career path that he's choosing, which is photojournalism, which he absolutely is very passionate about, his equipment alone in which he wants is a couple thousand. So this is just in a few months. We have to come up with a couple grand to be able to ensure that he is set up successfully for college. And these are just like really big sacrifices that we have to make. And I have these conversations with him and he's super understanding. Like if you don't have it for the first couple weeks of school, like it's coming, just give me a moment to be able to get what you need, like make a list. Let's start like maybe putting things on layaway or doing this. So just having him be understanding of that is super helpful, but it is definitely going to be a great impact on my home, because my husband is unfortunately disabled. So he has epilepsy and lupus as well, which is a blessing and a curse, because it's a blessing he can stay home with my dad, but he is also, we don't have an income because of that. So it's just, for me, I consider myself a one income household because I don't count on my dad's income. I solely count on mine because that's the only one that I can essentially depend on to be able to have, extra funds to spend or do anything with. So it's going to be a really, really big challenge, having him going off, and not being in the home, because I know I'm going to get those phone calls like, Mom, I need this, Mom, this, Mom, I have this, I need this equipment, I need this lens for my camp. So I know that those things are coming. So just planning ahead is going to be a really big thing for me, as well as budgeting. It's honestly all we could do as a parent, not only as a caregiver, but as a parent. That's what we have to do.
And then lastly, knowing what you know now, caring for your dad, has there been any like change in your future plans for yourself and like how you plan on going about setting your children up for ending up having to care for you?
Yes. And so I have told my children that they could put me in a home. I was like, the second that I start giving you any problems, you have my full authorization to go ahead and put me in a care facility. I don't want to put this financial burden on you, or strain on them, I should say. So I've had those conversations. I've already made my, final wishes, if you will, with them, because we've also, in the time that we've cared for my dad, we've had some scares. And I'm like, you know what, we need to put these things in writing. So the one thing that I can say for anyone is like just making sure that you have your plans, speak with your family, know what you want. And then also for me, my future is kind of like non-existent because I don't know what it's going to bring, essentially, right? So we can't go on vacations. We can't just get up, pack up and go away for a weekend. We can't just, go away, like go for a day drive. We can't just go to Syracuse. Oh, let's go to the Syracuse Mall. We can't do those things. So my future is kind of just dependent on what's going to happen with my father's care. So I have put a full pause, to be honest, on any like future planning, just because I'm currently thinking of what's in front of me right now. And that's just honestly the way that I've been doing that. So yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Jen, thanks so much for all those insights, and no doubt that your experiences are shared by many. And Justice, thank you for your excellent questions. Sandy, listening to Jen, what stood out, from what you see every day in your job?
First, I would like to applaud Jen for all her comments to our audience about plan ahead. We talk to people about this all the time. If these ladies were given a course in college, how to take care of your parents, no one would attend that class, because you always think your parents will be fine on their own. And then you get a diagnosis, in Jessica's case, a very young age, and now your life has been changed significantly. You take it on because of the love for your parents, but you also understand, like Jen explained as well, your life is on hold. There is no plan for vacation. There's certainly things that you're sacrificing because of the love for your parent. The financial expectations are different. Going through the bills, I mean, Jen, if you could do it in 2 to 3 months, you're a hero. I mean, you could walk into one of these offices and say, I have money to pay my dad's bill. And they go, but you're not on the account. You're like, but I have the money right here. So all the paperwork that you have to go through, which we understand is protected for a number of reasons. There's a number of scammers and abusers out there. So you know why they have their policies in place, but it also makes an additional challenge in pre-planning for caregivers, which you don't expect. Your dad moves in, you didn't think you'd have to go a lawyer to pay his RG&E bill. Again, it's what comes to us all the time. Having a big family, to go back on that, doesn't mean that there are 11 other caregivers. What it just means is you have a big family. Jen and Jessica has what we call the caring gene. They have the caring gene that a special person can take on this responsibility. Not everybody does. Not everybody can. You can have a big family, but there's only 1 or 2 who can really take this on with the challenges that come with it, but fight through the challenges because you're doing it for a reason. Again, to call you a hero is another thing. And you were also correct with the benefit situation. So your dad has significant income coming in, but it also leads to not eligible for benefits. So his money has to be used directly for his caregiving, but it doesn't really support the household as much as needed. So there's always those complications with, yes, they have money, but it's not enough to pay for someone's whole life and their expenses. If you needed equipment or everything like that, necessarily does the income cover that? And so there's challenges and tries to come up with ideas of charities or foundations that we can help support people. Because taking someone into your home might be adjusting your bathroom or putting in grab bars or a ramp or things like that, which you didn't think about the first day you moved him in, but now you're 2 years down the road and things have changed. So again, there's a lot of things that we try to look at the holistic picture, just not bringing someone in and feeding them meals 3 times a day because they're your parents. So I appreciate that.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. So when we wrote the story announcing this Zoom forum, we had a link where readers could submit questions. And a question that was submitted is, when you're a caregiver, and it may be taking care of your parent, it could also be a parent taking care of a younger person with disabilities. When the person can't be left alone, what are some of the challenges or solutions to that? And I know, Jessica, you talked about the Ring camera, but I'd be curious, maybe starting with Sandy and then maybe others chiming in, because that, when you talk about limitations, the physical presence is a significant limitation as somebody's trying to navigate the rest of their lives.
We try to look at living, being by themselves as a qualifier, like what is the risk of them being by themselves? is that they will walk out the front door and you will not know where they are? Or is it a risk for falls? So, you know, you can't leave this person alone because they're high risk falls. So we have to look at it broken down a little bit more. If a person's going to leave the house, that's really at a high risk situation. There are some safeguards. We work with the Alzheimer's Association, the things that you can do. The cameras are technology we have now that we've never had before, so that's certainly helpful. If the risk is going to the basement, is there a way you could safeguard the basement door so they don't go down there? So it's really hard to say why you can't leave them alone. I mean, I do have a son who doesn't want to leave his dad alone because he's high risk for falls. But as we say in the business, you could watch someone for 23 hours a day, and the minute you left is when they fall. It's you know, Jen shaking her head. You have kids when they were small, you watched them all the time, but you turned your back for 1 second, they fell and hit their head. Were you at risk? Should you be guilty for this? It's an accident. We try to make the environment as safe as possible for falls, or to find them soon after the fall, which Jessica mentioned. So if her mom does fall and she has the camera, she knows then she can get emergency assistance versus coming home from her job 8 hours later to find out that her mom fell at 8 in the morning. So again, there's things that we try to work out so we can prevent the big crisis, but we're not always going to prevent the accident.
Thank you, Sandy. Any other thoughts about that, about the, you know, Jen or Jessica, in terms of being present and what that means, and what you think about regarding that?
Yeah, for me specifically, when I first got my dad, like when he first came to live with me, he smoked cigarettes, and so he would always go outside. And so to Sandy's point, you can watch them for 23 hours, and that 1 second you take off your eyes off of them is when they fall. And that's exactly what happened. And he got hit pretty hard. Like my dad literally fell face forward. I don't know if it's because he slipped and fell, I'm not sure, but I would say, like, no matter what they're doing, like, if there is anything that you can do, is always just make sure, like, for Jessica, have a camera on them, have something like when they're getting up, hey, where are you going? What do you need? Like, that's what I really try to do. If I have to go somewhere, I rely on my kids. Like, hey, can you watch them for like 20-30 minutes while I run to Wegmans and grab something? Like, I always have somebody there with him. I have to, because he is a high risk for falling, and sometimes it's challenging. Sometimes I have to wait until either he's, you know, sleeping for nighttime to be able to go out and do things, and leave the camera on him, because sometimes we just don't have that. I personally don't have another resource to be able to use.
And I'll speak a little bit with my situation. So I do have the Ring cameras outside, and I have considered, you know, setting up or purchasing and setting up the inside cameras. So far, I would say my mom's been pretty good at home. But there was an incident when I did take her to an appointment, and I had to run out and come back, and she got lost because she asked somebody where the bathroom was, and it was, to my understanding, very close to the office door, but somehow she ended up like on a whole another floor. So when she's home, that hasn't happened at home. She hasn't wandered, but you know, this is a progressive disease, and I don't know the time nor the day nor the hour when things are really going to start to, you know, just turn south. And so she is in a whole house, and I'm actually right now in the process of looking for apartments and assisted living apartments, because I know the house is just too much. And future wise, something smaller where there's a, you know, community and supervision is just going to have to be, you know, what it is. So.
Thank you.
Just to clarify, are you looking for an apartment for you and your mom?
No, so I live, we don't live in the same house. I would be looking for like an assisted living complex for her.
Okay, I misunderstood. I'm sorry.
No, okay.
Great insights. Thank you very much, Jen and Jessica. So we're 3/4 of the way through this discussion. I think we want to turn, this is an effort funded by a Solutions Journalism Collaborative, of which Jack is a staff member, and a lot of the reporting and stories and videos and social media posts that Justice is going to create this winter and spring and through the rest of the year. So we focus on solutions, right? And I think we've laid out very well here some of the challenges, the needs, and the gaps. So Sandy, Jen, Jessica, and of course Jack and Justice, if you had a magic wand and you could develop resources or opportunities or programs or gap fillers that maybe you don't see or that maybe you do see but they don't work as well as you'd like, what might that be? Specifically Jen and Jessica, what would help you and your loved one? And Sandy, what would help the clients at Lifespan and you work with so closely all the time?
I would like to maybe make a point for state and county workers to receive some sort of benefit for caregiving, right? So especially for someone like my dad and my uncle that passed away, his brother, that also dedicated over 20 years to the city of Rochester, also a state retirement employee. When they needed help the most, like with their caregiving, it's like because they're so well taken care of, from the state or like with their pension or whatever, they don't get the care that they essentially need. And so maybe thinking of some sort of plan, a medical plan. I know that if I want to get like a future healthcare benefit, like the long-term benefit, that's an additional cost. Maybe having someone that's retired have that covered so that they can receive additional support. I think that would be something that would be super beneficial for a lot of state and county workers that should be able to receive this benefit from the state.
Thank you, Jen.
Something that I had a magic wand, I would say, after, receiving the diagnosis and speaking with the neurologist or whomever, having whatever social worker, will be involved with the care partner, the care partner or caregiver, just having that social worker, that person be equipped with just a lot of knowledge and information, like, what it's going to be like or what things will be needed for, signing up somebody for a disability or SSI and just moving forward with all of the things, really. There's a lot of nuances with, getting all of those services set up. So just, I would say having somebody who can be there and reliable to just literally guide the person, and, that might be too much, but just being a support person, really.
And Jessica, I think that's huge. I guess if I had my magic wand, of course, I'd like to take care of transportation. It's always a big thing. It's one of the biggest concerns that we have or trying to address. COVID did have a big impact on our volunteer services that are available in the county. But again, transportation is one that can be very costly, and it could lead to people not going to medical appointments because of transportation, or their family members are working and can't get off. So transportation is probably be number one. Number two, I would probably put a bulletin board, use one of those big signs on 490 and make a big thank you to every caregiver who's taking, a big portion of their life and contributing to the care of their parent or their spouse. It could be a sibling, because I think a lot of people feel alone when you're isolated and like Jen said, she could only go out at night or when her dad's sleeping. How do we keep Jen's life alive and some positives if she's restricted about when she can or cannot go out, or when she can't go out for coffee or go to a movie? I would just like to say congratulations to all of you. You are my heroes. And I wish I could do what you could do, but I, as other people at Lifespan and our care managers, will try to support every caregiver out there to help you along the path, just because we don't know what's always coming. We can give you an idea, but like in a tree, there's so many branches where the care could go. We don't know them all, but we can give you an idea from the trunk what is going to start to happen. The finances, the personal care, the isolation, and things that really build up to what you're going to find later in life. And maybe your mother will never wander, but maybe she will. And what can we do to try to address that? The first signs you see of something like that. So, Mike, if you could put up a bulletin board on 490, that would be great.
All right, we'll take a look at that, Sandy. Thank you. Yeah.
How about
and,
house ads in the paper?
Yes. So any other magic wand solutions, answers, even just redos of some things that exist already that we haven't discussed today? It's been an excellent conversation.
I was gonna say, I think Jen brought up a good point when we spoke outside of this about day programs or something like that. So Jen, if you wanted to build on.
Yes, so there are a lot of day programs. Like for Hispanic speakers, the only one that is available is Ibero. But then having to be able to, because Ibero does not provide transportation, to Sandy's point, like providing that would be helpful, but maybe getting additional resources in the communities for people of other languages. Like we have, our Rochester is so diverse with so many different languages, and older people like to be comfortable with people that they can communicate with. And so just having some resources available for the Latino community, the Asian community. I know that they also take care of their families as well. People of different languages, just having that option out there that provide transportation. I know that there's a program called Elder Care, and they'll come and pick you up in a van, in a bus, and they'll take you to the program. But there are no programs that exist like that for situations like my dad, where their income is just a slightly bit higher, and of different background or different language speaking.
In addition to multiple languages, we also, and again, this counts as a language, it's a sign language. The hearing impaired that we have in this community is very large. And also trying to connect them to services is very difficult as well, even for someone to try to get transportation and have the driver understand this person is hearing impaired and will need to have more direction. So thank you for bringing that up, Jen.
Great. So we have hands raised from two members of the audience, and I'm going to open up so that each of them can ask a question. Mr. Higgins and Ms. Appetz, start with Mr. Higgins. Please ask a brief question, since I know we don't have a lot of time left. Mr. Higgins, go ahead. Can you hear us, or can we hear you?
I'm not Mr. Higgins, but I'm Mr. Cooney.
Okay, go ahead. It says Paul Higgins. Go ahead.
Well, that's odd. Okay. My question is not for anybody really. The solution that we're trying to provide is to create a predication on becoming a caregiver.
Oh.
So meaning that the financial burden, the emotional burdens that come with that burden itself is, someone mentioned that their parent had lupus, which is technically a genetic thing, I guess. But would it would it be something that if you had 10 years to plan for that, would you have changed your behavior patterns, like your savings patterns, the way that, the compromising of college? I have 3 children. The compromising of paying college tuition, and the moral issue of deciding that is very, very difficult. So, is that something that is being looked at from what you've seen? From just even a study or a survey type thing? I work with the AARP on this topic.
Yep.
And it's very curious to me that so much medical technology exists, right? That should allow you and arm you with the ability to prepare for that.
Right.
Would you have done anything differently if you
Okay.
had had that knowledge 10 years ago, 20 years ago? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I don't know if there's any response to that.
I would say yes. I would definitely have planned planned a lot differently. I would have not gotten a 2-story home if I had 10, 20 years to plan. I would have gotten, a ranch home. I would have definitely saved more in my savings. It's not so looking so sad as it is right now. I would look into the long-term caregiving insurances. Like there's just so many things had we had the opportunity to plan for, it would be so much easier right now. The one thing that you brought up is emotional. I don't think it's emotional for me to speak on it, so I apologize, but I don't think there is ever anything that can prepare you for the emotion that comes behind caregiving. It's very emotional to hear your father or anyone that you're caring for ask for someone who's no longer living, or want to be with someone who is no longer living and ask for those things or do things that just break your heart. My brother came to visit him once and he was like, my dad was my superhero, and just looking at him and seeing him in this, this state makes me really sad. So like the emotions behind it are very difficult to manage. You can't be prepared for that because you don't know what life is going to swing your way. But it is a very big change, like a very big challenge to push through every day. I will say that. So that's something that you can definitely get prepared for if you're going to be taking care of someone in the next few years.
Thank you, Jen. Thanks for the question. Leslie Apatz, a brief question, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, brief. I've been caring for my dad 21 months, both at home and out of the home in a nursing home. Our costs were $9,000 a month for 24/7 caregivers. I noticed that was not on Jack's thing. My question is there anything in the legislation for tax relief for the care receiver, so that they can have a tax deduction on their caregiving expenses? Is there a tax deduction for the caregiver on their taxes to pay for? Because there's no employer. This is a 24/7 job, over 40 hours a week. So
Okay.
that's my question.
Thank you. I'm not sure we have the answer here, but I've noted that question, and it's something Justice can look into as we go ahead. So thank you.
Mike, I did try to email you, but my email at your copied email got kicked back to me, the one that you confirmed my registration. I don't know what happened there.
Okay, emails on our website too, but thank you very much.
Okay, just so I tell you.
Yep, so we're at the end of our presentation. A big thank you to everybody who attended and for the two who asked questions, but a particular thank you to Justice, Sandy, Jessica, Jack, and Jen for your contributions, your research, your sharing. A wonderful discussion. I filled the whole page with notes and lots of stories ahead, solutions-oriented stories, videos, social media posts, and we are going to build a advisory group of caregivers, and Jen and Jessica, you'll be invited to participate in that and share more. But we really want to make this a focal point at DNC, Lifespan, others in the community as well, to really elevate this issue because it just touches almost every family. So thanks to all, and everyone have a wonderful day. Bye.
Thank you, Mike. Bye-bye.
Thanks.